I'll introduce myself. My name is Fadila Ali. I am the Assistant Executive Director of GCFI, and today I will be your mistress of ceremonies. And to start things off, we're going to go on to Bob Glazer, who's our Executive Director, to share some welcoming remarks.
Thank you, Fadila. Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon for those of you in Europe, and good evening for our board members and friends that are in Australia. I'm very pleased to be able to have this conference, despite the difficulties that we have experienced. We tried as hard as we could to have an in-person conference, but we are obviously unable to do it. Circumstances prevented that. But we did look for a variety of different options to have this conference and still provide a lot of what everybody finds valuable with GCFI. So it's a lot more than just presentations. GCFI has always been a lot more than presentations. It's about interacting and making friends, making new colleagues that they can collaborate with. And so that's what you can, those are the functionalities that you'll find within the app that we have selected, this Whova app. So please feel free to, I'm not going to tell you how to use it, but feel free to just move around in it. You'll see places where you can communicate with your colleagues, where you can set up virtual meetings. You can have coffee breaks together. You can convene other activities. And we're hoping that you find that this is as rich an experience as you can have given the circumstances. But I want to thank everybody for attending this. Just from the amount of the number of people that have joined, I think that this sort of shows that there is a need for us to continue to interact, and hopefully, and I feel very confident that next year we'll be able to do this in person and get back to normal. So thank you again, and I'll turn it back to Fadila.
Thank you, Bob. Next up, we're going to hear from the GCFI chair, Henri Valles. Henri, over to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Henri.
Thank you. Good morning, GCFI community. On behalf of the board of directors, I wish to welcome you to the 74th GCFI conference. It is indeed unfortunate that we were not finally able to have an in-person meeting this year. Our hearts are with all those who have been affected by the COVID pandemic. And as these circumstances, the transition to a virtual meeting has, on the other hand, allowed many of us to discover how technology can help enrich the experience of the conference. Some of this technology is undoubtedly here to stay, irrespective of the future format of the conference. So overall, I would like to commend the conference organizing team, Fadila, Bob, Alejandro, and the various BOD committees, board of director committees, for rising to the challenge once again this year by effectively embracing such technology. For those for whom this is the first GCFI conference, welcome to the GCFI family. We hope that in addition to having a super enjoyable and productive week, that you will remain engaged with the organization beyond this year's conference. Indeed, we hope to see you next year and the following year and in the years to come. Some of the current directors of the board first came here as students to present their work to an international audience and have since remained involved with the organization as they went on to pursue their own careers. These ex-students are now helping ensure that GCFI continues to fulfill its mission of being a leading forum for scientific dissemination on critical issues surrounding marine resource management and sustainability in our region. So it is great to see you now, and we certainly hope to see you in the years to come. And hopefully next time we will be in person. I would like to conclude by informing you that we will likely have our annual membership meeting on Monday, November 15th at 17 hours Eastern Time. This is a meeting where, among other things, the annual financial report of the GCFI will be presented to the membership for approval, and when the nominees to the board of directors will be voted by the membership. More details will follow during the conference, so please stay tuned. I hope to see you all there. In the meantime, I look forward to talking to you during the conference. Do not hesitate to reach out to the directors of the board. They are all super friendly people, and have a wonderful week. Thank you.
Thank you, Henri. And finally, to wrap up our opening ceremony, we're just going to have some brief words from Alejandro Acosta, who is the program chair of GCFI.
Good morning, everybody. It's great to be here. I wish we could in person, but I think it's a great to see that you are all connected for this year GCFI. At the end of last year, we were all expecting this year to be an in-person meeting, but what happened? We were all planning to be in the beautiful Fort Walton Beach, but however, you all know what happened, and we ended having to adapt to provide you a very exciting and dynamic meeting for this year. I think we have accomplished that due to your participation, the overwhelming response, and the support that we've been having for this year meeting. This year GCFI consisted of 10 days of exciting live program, and it will keep you all engaged and interactive among your peers and colleagues throughout the Caribbean, US, and all around the globe. We have people from many places join us as always. The virtual meeting is also include all the special events that you love and you always looking forward to having here, like student social activities, Cinefish, Fish and Forum, Story Slam. And also we have a great set of keynote speaker for this year. I mean, we work very hard to try to bring the more relevant science to you during this meeting. I hope this year meeting will keep you engaged and interacting with all the participants, and more important, will provide to you all the information that you need. We request and we will ask you to take advantage of the application that I think is very versatile. It will allow you to provide all the feedback that we need as much as you can, so we can continue bringing to you all the relevant information that you need to accomplish your professional goals and to accomplish the sustainability of the resources in the region. I'm sure that we will have a very fruitful meeting, and then you all will benefit from this one. And hopefully we will see each other live in the near future. Thank you for your participation and support from GCFI. Fadila, back to you.
Thank you, Alejandro. So up next, we would have our keynote speaker. Unfortunately, Dr. Sumaila is actually on his way to COP26 in Glasgow, and his flight got cancelled. So he is unable to join us live as originally intended, but Dr. Sumaila has pre-recorded a presentation for us. So just to give you a brief introduction, Dr. Sumaila is a professor and Canada Research Chair in Interdisciplinary Ocean and Fisheries Economics at the Institute for the Oceans and Fisheries and the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs, University of British Columbia. His research focuses on bioeconomics, marine ecosystem valuation, and analysis of global issues such as fishery subsidies, marine protected areas, illegal fishing, climate change, marine plastic pollution, and oil spills. He won the 2017 Volvo Environment Prize and was named a Fellow of the Royal Society of Canada in 2019. His interest in the environment started early in life when his grandfather used to say, "People should walk as if the ground feels pain." This is sophisticated environmentalism. His specific interest in ocean and fisheries was picked in Norway, and he enjoys exploring novel ideas and mentoring future thinkers. He loves waking up each day thinking of how best to contribute to ensuring that we bequeath a healthy ocean to our children and grandchildren, so they too can have the option to do the same. So bear with me 1 second as I share his presentation today. Let me just do that 1 second. Go.
Yeah, good day to you all. And first of all, I want to apologize for not being with you virtually live. My hope was to be with you live from the grounds of COP26, but unfortunately, my flight was canceled. And so I'm still on the way trying to get to Glasgow and to my hotel. So sorry for that. In lieu of that, I decided to pre-record for you, and hopefully at least you get a bit of what you would have gotten if I was online live with you. So thank you for this. I also want to thank the organizers for making it possible to speak to you and to share some ideas, not only from me, but from my collaborators, students, and colleagues from around the world. So thank you for all this. The title of my talk is Why and How to Finance a Sustainable Ocean Economy. And this is the outline I put out for this talk. And essentially the why is mainly because the ocean is extremely important to us. It does lots of good stuff for us. And I'll explain this as we go. And then we also know that the ocean and life in the ocean in particular are under threat. So this is the why. So we need to do something. And as you all know, that to be able to do anything in the modern economy, financing is very critical. So that is why I'm taking this too. But before I get to the financing part, I'll also kind of introduce to you the concept of infinity fish, which I kind of developed in my new book, which was published in October. And that's the title, Infinity Fish and the Future of Fish and Fisheries, right? Economics and the Future of Fish and Fisheries, which I'll talk about. And then the last part of the talk is actually going to talk about financing. So first we lay the grounds and then we build the financing on top. But not only financing, as you see in Infinity Fish, I'm going to also talk about all the other things, or most of the other things we also need to do in order to achieve what I call Infinity Fish. The ocean is our life and it's under threat. So let's get going with this part of the talk. Essentially, this is a picture I like to show, mostly not to scientists like you, because this is well known to you, but to politicians, to the public. When I do public speeches, I like to show this because many people don't realize this, mainly because we human beings, we live on Earth, on the ground, we are terrestrial. So the ocean is kind of a bit far removed from us, but actually the ocean is so important. It is 70% of the surface of the earth. That is huge. And that means that actually we cannot afford to ignore the ocean. We cannot afford to mess up the ocean. And there are 3 quick points to be made here. Because the ocean is so large, doesn't mean that we cannot mess it up. We cannot overfish. We cannot destroy the habitats. So it's not large enough that we cannot do harm to it. So that's one thing to know. The second thing is that because it's large, it doesn't mean that we cannot do something to avoid all this stress, to reduce and minimize the stress and eliminate some of the threats. It is possible. Humans are able to do that. And this is important because with all our technology and our big brains, we actually can have the ability to do this. So we have to make a deliberate effort to ensure that we do not destroy the ocean. And these are my first few points for you. And here I zoom in on fish, and because fish for us at my institute at UBC, I mean, fish is everything because that's our focus. And when you look at it, actually, we are not completely crazy to put fish at the center of what we do. Here, fish is in the middle, fish stocks, and you see around it, all these economic activities depend on the fish being available. So without fish, there will be no fisheries. Without fisheries, there will not be seafood to be eaten. There will not be dollars to make and jobs and all that. And you see around all over here. And I tell you, for those of us at this conference, I think most of us will have to find another job to do without the fish and the marine system and the ocean. So there you go. So that fish is so important. And some of us think that agriculture alone can give us all the fish we need, or agriculture can replace a big chunk of the wild fisheries. I say, please note that for many of the agriculture fish we farm, whether it's shrimp or tuna or salmon, they need fish meal and oil from the wild, at least at the moment. We haven't found some magic to avoid that. And so lots of things depend on ensuring that wild fish stocks in the ocean, but not only that, in freshwater systems too, actually are sustainable. Now, in terms of what the ocean does for us, this is a lot. We have 60% of the world's population lives within 60 kilometers of the coast. This is an estimate, and it's probably larger than that, actually, since the estimate was made. And we know that the ocean generates about 50% of the oxygen on Earth, and as you know, oxygen is life, right? So if the ocean is generation half of the oxygen on Earth, and even it means that without the oxygen, we wouldn't be able. We'll have half a life or something close to that. Or what is half a life to you? In fact, that's why the title of this bit of the talk is "The Ocean is Our Lives," because without the oxygen there, we can't breathe enough oxygen, and we will be gone, right? And it regulates the Earth's climate, and this is huge. We know that with climate change, COP26 is taking place. We know how important the ocean absorbs the heat, and does a lot of things to sequester the carbon for us partly. And so there is a lot of regulation of Earth climate that the ocean does. And without the ocean, many parts of the Earth will be inhabitable for people. So that's important. It is crucial for the Earth's environmental balance and survival, absorbing things and releasing things here and there, exchanging with the terrestrial system to keep us in balance. These are all very vital for our survival. Now, after talking about the broad things the ocean does for us, let's zoom into some of the really concrete stuff. For example, cultural and spiritual values of the ocean and the fish. In the ocean in particular, you go to the beach, you put your feet in the water and you walk on the beach and you feel amazing. And all this is valuable. We have all the recreational fishing, angling, and trophy, all those ecotourism stuff connected to the ocean. Very important for us as people, very important for our economies, our cultures, and so on. Transportation, yeah, without the ocean, a lot of our commerce, global commerce, will be in deep trouble. We'll have to find some magical ways of shipping things that go on water somehow, and that will not be cheap, And I mentioned this already, it's a lot of recreational angling and all that. So the ocean supports millions of jobs and livelihoods and income in coastal communities, people in the Gulf areas of the US and Florida, the Caribbean. You understand this very well, right? How important the ocean is in terms of all these things, right? How about the food? This is nutrition, this is healthy animal protein from the fish. Just to give you a little number, according to estimates, at least about 100 million tons of fish are taken out of our global ocean year in, year out, whether legally or illegally. And all this get into the system, feed people, jobs, and incomes. And I tell you, without this, we will have to find ways to feed people. For example, if you convert the 100 million tons of fish into mature cows, you actually having about 100 million mature cows. If we assume a mature cow is a ton in weight, 100 million fish cows, if you like, being pulled out of the ocean year in, year out. And this is, like I said, a lot of food, the economy, the culture, but think about the ecosystem, even the ocean. What system can sustain that amount of biomass being sucked out of it each year? That's why we have lots of overfishing around the world, for example, and we need to watch this very carefully. Now, jobs, I mentioned jobs. We estimated a few years back that about 260 million people worldwide actually earn some income from the ocean, whether it's actual fishing or in the processing, the post-harvest sector. Lots of people. Think about families, right? If you multiply this by four on average per family, that's really lots of people. And when you look deep into these 260 million people, most of them are in large developing countries, as you see here, mostly in Asia, but Nigeria also made it on this list. So to me, this is one of the biggest services the ocean provides us. I mean, keeping young people busy, doing work they enjoy mostly, and also their livelihoods depend on. If they didn't have the fish, just think about that. Millions of people in India, in Indonesia, in the Philippines, in Nigeria, who have nothing to do. That is serious stuff, social and economic insecurity. And these problems don't stay in these countries. That is the thing. We are actually a global village. If people are tight in West Africa, in Southeast Asia, they are not going to sit down and just die. They try to find ways to keep alive, including forced migration. And so this is not a problem for all of these nations. I like to say this again and again. We cannot just box one part of the world doing extremely well and the rest of the world not doing well and think we are going to have our peace. So we've got to make the whole world livable for everybody, and then we'll start really getting the full potential of all of us. Yeah. So there are threats, as I mentioned, to the ocean. We are overfishing. This is the fishing down marine food web of Daniel Pauly, and you see that we take the big fish again and again, and we are moving the system down the food web. As we are doing that, we're also impacting the habitats and destroying them. Climate change is taking down coral reefs and all that. So you see that is a recipe for disaster for us, because we are really destroying the ocean and life in the ocean in particular. And I want to say that, please note, people of the world, note that we can actually end up with a dead ocean, an ocean with no life in it. Then just think about that. That is very scary. And a dead ocean is what none of us want. So we need to do a lot more. Climate change, that's it up here. See the average global temperatures, average over the historical average, and you see that the more reddish it is, the higher it is. I don't need to belabor this. Yesterday, I was going to the airport from Vancouver. Partly the reason I think that our flight was canceled. You can't believe the moment we had in Vancouver. It was thunderstorms. It was hail dropping. It was just like being in the tropics. We're talking about typhoons in Vancouver. Think about it, in November. So climate change is not a joke. You can pretend, put your head in the sand. Nature doesn't care about what people think. Nature does what it does, given what we do to it. So this is important. Now, here at the bottom, you see marine debris, plastic, and all the things we end up in the ocean, really messing up the ocean, life in the ocean, and consequently us. Remember, all these things we are doing don't just remain, that nature doesn't actually care as far as we can tell, right? When your city gets flooded and suddenly you need a boat to get from one place to the other, you think the water cares or the ocean cares? It's we, the people, who suffer the consequences. So we need to take care of this. The last one here is oil spill. So this is just a quick summary of all the threats the ocean, and there are multiple stresses impacting the ocean and adding into the problem on top of one another, and the consequences of the cumulative effect of this can be really, really devastating. So that is that on the threat. So now, given all this threat and all the work me, my students, postdocs, and collaborators have done over actually 2 decades, I put together this 70 chapters in the book, and that I call Infinity Fish, trying to come up with a concept which actually summarizes a lot of what we already know, but in another way, right? So that is what I'm going to introduce you with. The ocean is important, it's under threat. What can you do? One of the ways we can think is to think of fish in terms of infinity. And that is the whole idea. Maybe that will bring us back into our senses, and we'll find a way to really keep our ocean and the fisheries and the life it holds sustainably without raking it up. So this is the cover of my book published in October, and the title is What You See Up That Infinity Fish: Economics and the Future of Fish and Fisheries. So this is out there, and it's already out, available to people. And I will tell you a little bit. So just bringing you back, the idea of infinity fish is essentially, if you take the ocean or even the marine environment, or the environment in general, one can boil down our relationship, we people, our relationship with the ocean and the environment, freshwater systems, what have you, into two main things we do. You know, when you take the whole model and you think of everything, sometimes all this can just be mixed up and you don't get to the basic. That's why I like this model. And I try to show it to any political place I go, policy, public place, I show this. And just boil down things to the most basic stuff we do. If you look at what people do, they just two things. One, we go to the ocean, take what we need, what we want, what we desire, whether it's the fish, whether it's diamond, whether it's oil and gas, and whatever we find useful, we take, and we take them into our economy and do all the things we do with that, the production, the processing, transportation, the consumption. At the end of the day, what we actually generate is waste. And where do the waste go? They go back to the environment ultimately. So from the environment, from the ocean, good things come to us. And to the environment, we pump bad stuff. And I tell you, Infinity Fish is about really thinking closely about how we do the taking and how we do the pumping out of the waste, so that we do them in a way that we can achieve what I'm calling Infinity Fish, which is the ability to pass on a healthy ocean to our children and grandchildren, so they too can have the option to do the same. That is the point. If we do our best and hand over a healthy ocean, our grandchildren will take it up, and we cannot tell them what to do, but at least we give them the option to do the right thing. And human beings, we learn. If we do that, those before us did to us and we did and pass it on, the likelihood of future generations also saying, come on, see what our forebears have done. So we also aim to achieve Infinity Fish by passing to the next generation and the healthy ocean. And then if we do that, then we get to what I call Infinity Fish. And that is, in general, the framing I discuss in my book. So where is the origin of this concept? And I have a lot of fun talking about the origin of this because it's actually interesting. I got invited to give a talk in Namibia, southern part of Africa, years ago. So I go in there. This is a big national conference of fisheries. But actually, generally, the natural resource sector is keen on this mainly because there is a lot of interaction between, especially, say, the diamond sector and the fishing sector in Namibia, because they kind of intersect on the ocean and their activities. So they are always at each other's throats, all right? So I land in there. I didn't know there was a big debate about the diamond sector and the fishing sector. But I know Namibia pretty well. I've been researching the hake stocks and the other fish stocks in the country for some time, and I know diamond is important. So as part of my talk, I told them, you know what? I think fish is more valuable than diamond. I mean, I just dropped that sentence and the room just went ballistic. I mean, half of it was happy and smiley. The fisheries minister loved this. And half of it was not that happy. I think those were the diamond people, right? So I said, yeah, fish is more valuable than diamond. And there are a number of reasons for this. Number one, fish is renewable. And if we manage it wisely, effectively, it can continue to give you benefit through time to infinity. It can give you benefit to infinity. And anything that can give you benefit to infinity, even if the benefit is small, mathematically, it sums to infinity. So we have infinity fish. On the other hand, diamond is not forever, as the popular palace tells you. If you have a deposit of diamond and you take a ton of it, you can never come back and take a ton of that diamond. It's gone forever. So diamond is not forever. Fish is forever. So fish is more valuable than diamond. The second reason I gave was actually the fact that diamond is very elitist. It's a tight sector. A few people work there, make the money, ship it off. But fish is people's property. You go to every coastal area. Anyone can go and do recreational fishery. You catch 2 salmon or whatever your species in your coast, take it home, have a nice meal, right? If you take a room like this audience here and say, how many of you have seen Diamond or benefited directly from Diamond, and you have almost nobody? How many of you have eaten fish this week and you have almost everybody? Therefore, fish is again more valuable than Diamond. So that was the origin of this. It started in the mother of all continents, and I like to say actually, you are all Africans. That is the beginning. That is where we all began. And so that was where this idea started, and ended up turning it into the title of a book and elaborating more about it. All right. So the content of the book, there is obviously the introduction, and then where I lay out, and I think it's quite a fun read. I wrote it naturally, I would say that. Then there are other sections. The next section is the idea of broadening the scope of what we value. And I think this is a central theme of the book. My idea is that if we really value, we have a good comprehensive way of valuing our ocean and the fish and whatever the ocean gives us properly, fully, then we are on the path to really taking good care of our ocean and achieving infinity fish or infinity ocean, if you like. So that is really the big theme. And in chapters 4 and 5, I actually developed the idea of intergenerational discounting. Discounting is an economic concept that allows you to reduce future payments to today's value so you can add them. And this turns out to be really important in economic analysis. The discount rate you choose to value your flow of benefits can actually on itself determine the outcome of your analysis completely. So this ought to be done well. The economic profession doesn't kind of give it the emphasis that I think it deserves. And in this book, I try to do that by introducing new ways of looking at flows of fisheries benefits so that we don't discount the benefit to our grandchildren so hard that we don't care about their option to have fish also, right? So that's that. So in chapters 4 and 5, I laid a theoretical foundation for this. Then in chapters 6 to 8, I apply this. This is applied to various different situations. And then in the last big section, this is then applied to broader issues. And the whole theme here is, if you have your value and valuation right, if you have it right, not the price right, as we hear, the price is just market value, doesn't capture everything. You have to have the value and valuation right. And if you do that, that will tell you how not to give harmful subsidies. For example, the WTO is negotiating on that. How to incorporate marine protected areas in your management system to protect you from errors and to buy insurance. You know, how to ensure that you don't let plastic become more than fish in the ocean. How to work with everyone working to mitigate climate change, like COP26 taking place now. You know, how to collaborate and work with other sectors to make sure that we actually mitigate climate change, because that will just wipe out our fishery sector, for example, if we let it, right? And so on and so forth. So these are the themes I take in this section. And then the financing is part of it. The financing didn't get in completely. It went in through the subsidies, but not as I'm going to explain to you now. Then in the last chapter, chapter 17, I actually talk about, I have an epilogue, the title of which is Knowing the Cost of Everything But the Value of Nothing. This one is a play on Oscar Wilde's statement, which is similar. Where he says economists know the price of everything and the value of nothing. So that's what I'm playing around with here. And you see it in all our debate. They tell, oh, it's too expensive to have healthcare. And they're not talking about all the benefits of healthcare, right? And so that is the kind of thing we're talking about. Oh, it's too expensive to implement MPAs and manage them. But how about the value that they give us, right? So that's the kind of thing. I had fun there because it's an epilogue, and I brought in all sorts of new and interesting things in there. So that gives you the summary of the book in a way. So let me see, given the time, how much else I can tell you. So let me just tell you a little bit. This chapter 2, one of the questions I asked in chapter 2 is the economic theory of valuation adequate to ensure infinity fish, as I just described to you? And reading the literature, my read of the literature is that, yeah, it is actually, because economic theory calls for a comprehensive compilation of all values into what is termed total economic value. So it's not just the market value. You also have non-market values that are useful to us. It's not only the direct value, you catch the fish, you sell, or you eat it, so you have direct value. No, there is the indirect value of fish, like some of it sequestering carbon. We need to take care of that. Then there's the option value, the fact that we don't really know all the values in our marine ecosystem at the moment. So we got to be careful, because what we think is not valuable today may turn out to be the valuable thing. So option value should be taken into account. Then we have existence value, the fact that the ocean and the life in it is part of nature. And we, the people, have no right to exterminate parts of this, right? So there is existence value. And then there is the bequest value, which is, what are we leaving for our children and grandchildren? And that is important. So the economic theory is broad enough, in my view, to if we do it properly, right? Now, then the next question is the practice of valuation adequate to ensure infinity fish? This is where the challenges come. You have difficulty in determining all the things people value. It's not easy to know what we value from our ocean or our fish, right? People value different things, sometimes counter to each other. You just care about catching the fish and eating them. Somebody says, no, existence value, the fish have a right to be here. So all this makes the practice of valuation really complicated. Some things are simply invaluable. Many of us argue that you cannot just put value on this. It's just too valuable for you to even try to put. And this is part of the argument. And some of us will say, but mind you, if we don't put any value, the market will run off with everything. So at least we should make an attempt, even if it's not complete. At least we have some value of the things some of us care about being taken into account by policymakers. Uncertainty is one other thing, like we say in West Africa, who knows tomorrow, right? So uncertainty makes you make decisions on valuation, which may actually be myopic in the long term, right? But you're just thinking of, how about if I'm not here tomorrow? Then there is the current problem, which has been aggravated a lot. We see it in our debate, the misinformation with all the social media, the untruths, and people are even talking about the post-truth world. If there's one thing that scares me to hell, it's actually this: the fact that society, we people cannot agree that when I say this is a cup of tea, they tell me no, it's a banana, and there's no amount of evidence I give that will change their mind. That is very scary, because without that, science doesn't matter, democracy wouldn't work, so valuation obviously wouldn't work. So that's central. And when the rubber hits the road, certain values are given more weight. Unfortunately, humans, right? We usually put more weight on current values than future values. That is a discounting I alluded to. And we give way to private values, the values to me, rather than the value to the community, to the society, to your group, right? And some say, oh, the seals are eating our salmon. Let's just knock off the seals so we get more salmon. No, you don't knock them off. They're part of nature. They have existence value. And actually, you might be shooting yourself in the foot if you keep taking down the predators, thinking that that will give you more of the things you like. You may be surprised what you actually end up having: nothing, actually. So all these things make values and valuation really, the actual practice, difficult. And you see it in the literature. In this slide that I titled "Rubber Hits the Road" shows up in the literature. So when the rubber hits the road, when the big decisions are to be made, unfortunately, all the things I said there do happen. You prefer current value to future value. You want the value to you versus the community. All those things actually are showing up in the literature. Here, what I did was to take the 9 top journals in environmental and resource economics. Check out all the papers they publish in a 10-year period. There was about 4,300 such papers, and then scan through to see which of the papers actually mention anything other than market value. And even I was shocked to see what came on. Only 1%, 1% of the papers actually mention any other value than the market value. So you see that. So even though the theory seems comprehensive, in the practice, we actually just focus on what brings dollars into our pocket. And that skews the whole management system. No wonder we have overfishing. We have too much pollution. We have too much climate change. That is the underlying factor. But to give you a bit of hope, I split the 10 years into the first 5 years and the second 5 years. And you can see that it seems with time, more and more economies are trying to incorporate the other values, which is a good sign, but we're far away and we need to do more, actually. So here I thought I would give you one of the things in chapter 17, which is an effort we are currently undertaking together with the First Nations Fisheries Council of British Columbia here in Canada, you know, and there's an indigenous group, and they're really keen on sustainable management and management that really meets the needs of the indigenous population of British Columbia, right? Because remember, they've been fishing for thousands of years before anyone appeared here. And and then with my group, the Fisheries Economic Research Unit, this is really a co-creating exercise, and all we were trying to do is to come up with ways to capture the values that First Nations put on their fish that the larger conventional system tends to ignore. So, and they were willing to allow the putting of numbers and actually dollars, because they've come to realize that to really have a serious argument with the conventional system, you need to talk dollars. So that was our aim here. And our aim was also to devise a very simple approach that communities, fishing communities in British Columbia can actually go out and apply this. So this is a quick run through the approach. The approach is a survey methodology in the tradition of contingent valuation. There are a few steps in there. Step one, you identify all the different values. So you go into the community, you run your survey with this representative sample and find out what the people, the values, the things they value about their fishery. So we did that in the pilot project, and they identify 6 different values. You have for salmon, sockeye salmon is very important. Cultural value, it means a lot for the culture of First Nations and indigenous peoples of Canada. They put environmental value on it. That is part of the environment. We need to have that in mind. Governance value, just bringing people together to work together to manage it, has a value in itself. Then, of course, the social value. What are you talking about? Potluck tradition, where families come and they bring their salmons prepared in different way. They discuss societal issues and try to work. Then the health, the very fact that fish in general, according to medical people, is better nutritious, has micronutrients than say beef, for example. And then of course there's a market value, because they do catch and sell fish to meet their needs. So these were identified by the community. And in the second stage, what we do, we give each participant in the survey $100 and tell them to allocate this to the values they care about. So people spend their money according to what they care about. And so we get those numbers. And then in step 3, the points allocated to each identified value are then indexed to the price of fish in order to derive relative measures. And so we have relative measures, and then we sum this and then multiply back to the price of fish in the market. And that will then give you the total economic value, as the theory of economics actually says we should. And when we did this in the pilot project, that's what you have. Sockeye that is selling for $3.75 per pound actually ended up with a whole value of $35.63 per pound, 9.5 times the market value. So this is the kind of valuation we need to do more of in order to make the practice of valuation actually mirror the theory, not just let the rubber hit the road, skew everything for us. So that is a concrete example that I just thought I should give to you in this talk. Now, Infinity Fish is about decision making over time. The use of environmental resources involve decision making over time. How much oil or diamonds should be extracted from a given mine this year, and how much next year? Should salmon on the west coast of Canada, for example, or the US, or any fish hake in the Benguela current in Southern Africa, or wherever, should those fish be fished intensively this year or not at all? How do we feed them? All these have consequences on whether you are able to achieve infinity fish or not. So time is important because the supply curve and of environmental resources are always shifting due to depletion of non-renewable resources and the biological and physical changes in renewable resources. This is what all of you in this room virtually are concerned about. All our research is to help us ensure that whatever happens physically, biophysically, we are managing the resources so that we can achieve infinity fish, right? And that is the second part. Now, let me quickly go through the financing. So this part, what is obvious is that no matter your good intentions, you can even have the values and valuation right. If you don't adequately finance the research, the management, the sustainable businesses in the ocean economy, then all your good ideas just die at the altar of no finance or inadequate finance. So this is work we did for the high-level panel for a sustainable ocean economy, which is a panel of 14, and I was told that it's now increased to 15 heads of states and government around the world, sitting ones who have come together to try to steer the world towards a sustainable ocean economy. And they asked me and a team of, I think, 22 colleagues from all over the world to really look at how is the financing now? What are the gaps and what can we do? What are the barriers to the gaps? So that is what I'm going to quickly summarize for you now. And this is a report that was issued by the high-level panel, but we have since published a paper in Nature Communications. Actually, we got it to be published on June 8th, the World Ocean Day, and that is available. It's open access. You can find it there to really see a beautiful summary of the big report that this is. So when you think about the ocean economy, there are many sectors there, right? And you have the extractable natural resources. We're talking about diamond, for example, and it's loss of natural capital in a positive sense of the turtles, all the things that make the ocean. That is important to continue. Otherwise, we're messing up the ocean. Then you have a lot of marine and coastal development activities. You have knowledge and knowledge creativity and curiosity, and all those are valuable things that happen because we have the ocean, because we have the fish, and so on and so forth. So that is very quick and broad description of an ocean economy and the sectors in it, right? I'm sure it's not comprehensive, but it gives you the idea. Now, these are some big statements I'm going to say, which is partly a repeat of the ocean is important to us, part of this talk. Now, in the first box here, you see the ocean economy is a cornerstone of the global economy, contributing trillions each year. I mean, the OECD estimates this could go up to about $3 trillion a year. The ocean economy the ocean sector is contributing to the ocean economy. This is huge, right? But despite this, the sector is drastically underinvested. In our analysis, we could find only 1% of the ocean economy, the value of the ocean economy being used actually to try to sustain the ocean, 1%. By any measure, this is too low. And with climate change, pollution, overfishing, putting mounting pressure on the ocean, it is crucial to protect and manage our activities, right? Otherwise, we are not going to achieve infinity fish. And to do this effectively and achieve a sustainable ocean economy, significantly greater finance needed, given what financing goes into the ocean economy to try to ensure that it is sustainable. Now, so there are barriers to this, and I have a picture here. I think this is either in the paper or the report, where we try to outline the barriers and opportunities and put them very nicely in this. So here, these are opportunities to establish effective, stable regulatory and policy environments. And this is a big one. You need to have this in order for the actors in the system to actually be incentivized and act in ways that ensure sustainability. And then you need to strengthen the knowledge, the data, the human capital. There's a lot we don't know about our ocean at the moment. And to manage it well, we have to understand it better. And that's where all of you, the work we all do is very crucial, right? And the one way we can actually start getting good money into the ocean sector is to stop pumping bad money into it. So we have lots of subsidies, for example, going into the fishing sector that are harmful to the fish, but also to the ocean economy, oil and gas. The IMF estimates $5.7 trillion going to the oil and gas sector. Can you believe that? I mean, lots of money going to pump out more CO2, encourage us to consume more of the things that are really destructive to our environment and therefore to us. If we can just convert and divert some of this into good subsidies that are things I call good subsidies, then the resources will start coming. So that is on that. And yes, that is on that side. And once you do this and you use public funds and you set up a nice enabling environment, that will then boost new approaches by the private sector, come up with cool investment ideas, and these are beginning to happen, both in the financial sector. You talk about blue bonds and all those things, and also in insurance, where the insurance make sure they don't, for example, insure illegal fishing boats, all those things. And those then will begin reducing and removing some of the barriers, like you have distorted market dynamics that I've just talked about, high financial risk due to weak enabling conditions, right? If we fix the enabling conditions, we'll reduce the risk so the private sector can go in and participate in a sustainable way, and then the mismatch between projects and available capital will also have to be the mismatch has to be reduced, right? And gaps in information, as I mentioned. All of this then will set up the system for us to get new investment ideas to be implemented, get more funding to ensure that we manage our fisheries sustainable in order to achieve infinity fish. And this is just a diagram telling you how the private sector thinks about financing. So you have real return here and the risk. And so there are different types of funding instruments, right? From taking on new debt to blended finance, where the private sector and government entities come together to play and reduce the risk, so private sector can participate. Then you have impact investing, and then equity, which is high risk, high return, and all of this have to be somehow brought to bear on our ocean system economy in a sustainable way. Please remember that, because you can do this badly, and that seems to be what we are doing. Even the finance that are going to the ocean sector now are doing things that are harmful to the environment, to the ocean, and consequently to us, and we need to take care of that. So again, this is just putting things together in a way. So you have your enabling environment that includes redirecting harmful subsidies in all sectors, not just on the fish, in forestry, in mining, and redirect the oil and gas. If you do that and use some of the resources to create this environment, you use it to align economic incentives, right? And all that will then lead to improved insurance, as I said, and it can catalyze new investment approaches, as stated earlier and in these boxes. So enabling the environment is crucial. Without that, private actors will just do what they see to be of benefit to them in the short term, and the consequences is that we all end up in the famous or infamous prisoner's dilemma situation, where we are raising for the fish, we are destroying the habitats and making fish less and less available, and therefore making our life more and more difficult into the future. That is something we don't want. So there is a lot of opportunity. There was a recent report that a huge number of us actually worked on, and looking at the benefits of effectively managed MPAs, how they can be used to protect habitat, ecosystems, and life in the ocean. And our conclusion in that analysis is that for every dollar invested to achieve protection and sustainability, we get the equivalent of $5 back, which I think is good investment and how you look at it. So there are opportunities, making sure we are sustainable, making sure we achieve infinity fish doesn't mean that it's going to be bad for the economy, right? We can do both of them in ways that creates green jobs, good jobs, green dollars, which are actually dollars, right? That will then be sustainable and equitable. One of the keynote speakers, David, will be talking about equitable management of fisheries, and that is important. How do we do this in a clever way? So here, just listing some of the things I've said, and there is a role for all the sectors, right? The government and the public institutions, like in setting up enabling environment, create a more attractive, that's the point, and then correct market distortions, so all the subsidies, allocate more GDP towards initiatives for attaining a sustainable ocean economy, SOE, by strengthening ocean governance, providing clear principles, metrics, and guidelines for investors. And there are efforts like the European Commission has got this blue economy finance principles, and a number of them are cropping up, and these are important to help the private sector know how to do this in a sustainable way. We also need the private finance, increase finance and investment to the sustainable ocean economy, introduce new financing mechanisms and tools, boost new approaches to insurance, and then develop private-public partnerships to stimulate the flow of investable ocean deals into the sector, and then you have the public and private coming together to do it, similar to that. But you could actually, the government and the private sector, apart from working on their own, they also need to team up in certain cases to try to help. And all of this should be done with the view to opening up the sector, the financial sector, the ocean economy, to marginalized groups like women, youth, and racialized groups, and so on, that minorities in various sectors need to be given space, because the more diverse all of this is, the better. This is science talking, not me. You have perspective from all backgrounds, co-creating the knowledge and the finance that will help us achieve infinity fish. So in conclusion, getting values and valuation right is crucial to ensuring that infinity fish is not lost. At the moment, the way we're going, we can lose infinity fish. We can have a dead ocean. We can have an ocean that has more plastic than fish. All of this will be horrible for not only us, even us, our current generation, but more so for future generation. This will set, but if you have the values and valuation right, then that will set the tone for all the things we need to do, the policies, the actions we need to take to ensure infinity fish. It will help us to take actions that will reinforce positive feedback from people to the ocean and vice versa. Unlike now, where we fund harmful subsidies that lead to overfishing and therefore reduce the available fish for people, and then we raise for the fish negative feedback. How about you become creative with public funds? Like, for example, paying people to catch plastic rather than fish, where the fish is depleted and the ocean is polluted with plastic. Then you reduce the plastic in the ocean. You give the fishes their income and therefore livelihood. You give the fish a break. So we have win-win-win. In the next round, we have a cleaner ocean, people who have their livelihoods, and more fish to meet our nutritional needs. How about that? That is the kind of clever ways we can use public funds rather than buying fuel or paying for fuel or giving people new engines so they can go fish more. Remember, nature doesn't just give you fish because you want more or you have a new vessel. No, if there's no fish to catch, there's no fish to catch. Your boat can be as sophisticated as you want. All this would also help us adequately finance a sustainable ocean economy. And this last point is crucial because anything can die. Anything can die. Everything dies at the altar of no finance. So get your values and valuation right. That will allow you to actually get the right finance, sustainable finance, adequate amount of it into the ocean to ensure that we have sustainability through time and therefore infinity fish. Thanks very much for your attention and thanks for the invitation. And I'm really sorry I couldn't be with you, but hopefully you've got some ideas here that might help, and we will keep the discussion on. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in for our keynote presentation. As we would have mentioned earlier, Dr. Sumaila is probably in the air right now trying to get to COP26 in Glasgow. So although he is unable to be with us right now to answer questions, we will encourage you to still post your questions in the Hoover app, so that we can try and follow up with him afterwards to get those answered. So we are very thankful to Dr. Sumaila for joining us virtually to deliver today's keynote address. And to keep things moving so that we can keep on to time, I would like to invite Bob Glazer to rejoin us, please.
Hello again, everybody. That was very interesting. I know I had a few questions, so it's unfortunate that he was not able to be here in person, but at least technology is now allowing us to even view people who are in the middle of the air. So at this point, what we're going to do is we're going to begin the opening ceremony in the sense that we have a long-standing tradition with GCFI. I'm not going to go into it too much, but I do want to bring up one sad event that happened this year, and that is the loss of a dear friend and colleague, Leroy Cresswell. Everybody who's been to GCFI knows Leroy. He's probably the first person everybody met when they came in to register, always with a smiling face. And he always was quick to engage with students and to sort of show them the way through GCFI and to mentor them on their paths going forward. I just want to tell a very brief story about Leroy because it's very germane to GCFI and how we got where we are. I remember sitting with Leroy at a GCFI, I don't know, this was probably in the early 90s in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. And we were sitting in the old town. And I remember this vividly because for those of you who have been in some of these countries, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. But we were sitting at this table outside, and you know how when you feel something at your feet, you think, you know, maybe there's a dog there or there's, you know, you're getting bit by an insect or something like that. Well, he had on his very old pair of tennis shoes or sneakers. And we looked down and there was a little boy trying to shine his tennis shoes. And, you know, we weren't accustomed to that kind of thing, but of course it was funny in its own way, but it's also sad in its own way. And of course, Leroy, being the generous person he was, you know, compensated him, even though obviously he wasn't going to get a shiny pair of new sneakers from that work. But just to bring the story to where it needs to go, we were sitting there and we were talking about how much more GCFI could be than what it was. At that point, it was probably at the lowest point. And we were sort of sad because first of all, it was a community of people. But secondly, there was some very good science that was not able to come out because people just were not coming to GCFI. The proceedings were 5 years old and hadn't been published. So we said, we're not going to complain about this anymore. And we decided that we were going to really try to be proactive and move GCFI into the next era. And thanks to Leroy, everybody is here because of his efforts. There might not be a GCFI if it weren't for that conversation and for Leroy's efforts. So he really has made a difference to all of us, whether we know it or not. And he was a dear friend. We met in the Turks and Caicos many years ago, growing conch, and remained very close friends up until his untimely passing. So I just wanted to pass along those good thoughts about Leroy, and that everybody really does owe him a little bit of gratitude, everybody that's here, because GCFI would not be where it is if it weren't for him. And that's all I wanted to pass along, Fadila.
And typically, as what is history with GCFI, after our keynote presentation, we typically have the ringing of the Jim Higman bell to signify the opening of GCFI. So today we have Denita Cresswell, who is Leroy's wife, who's going to hopefully be able to enable her video and audio right now. Denita? And Bob, maybe as we wait for Denita to join us, you can talk a little bit about the history of the bell, and then if we can't get Denita to join us, I can play the recording.
So this bell, this bell came way before I did, but Jim Higman was the executive secretary who was based at University of Miami. For those of you who don't know, GCFI started about 1948 and was housed at the University of Miami. Jim Higman did everything. He produced the proceedings, he organized the conference. And he also served in that capacity. And when GCFI, this was during some of the years, University of Miami was going through a bunch of budget cuts. And so they jettisoned GCFI as one of their efforts to reduce their budget, at which point Mel Goodwin and Greg Waugh, both in South Carolina, some of you may recognize some of those names, took on GCFI, and it became a nonprofit. And so that's how we got to where we are. The bell is the Jim Higman bell, and it signifies the opening of the conference. And I'm hoping we can get Denita on here. It's been iffy with her connectivity before, but we're hoping that we can get her on here because this means a lot to me, and Denita has meant a lot to all of us who have known Leroy and know Denita. So, and I see her hand, so I think that she's there. Okay, Denita, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bob, and thank you for those kind words about Leroy. I'm excited about the opportunity to be able to carry on the tradition of ringing the bell. I just have a few things to say before that, and I promise it's only about 3 minutes. So I am Denita Cresswell. I was Leroy's wife for 37 years. And at the time that I had met him, he was already a member of GCFI. Leroy was a scientist, a mentor, a teacher, a scholar, but most of all, where GCFI was concerned, he was a very kind and generous spirit. He never met a person who wasn't his friend and colleague, and he certainly never turned down an opportunity to help someone. He was acutely aware of the challenges that faced GCFI and of the objectives of its mission statement. And so his vision was to face these challenges and to fulfill the mission statement by creating a family of colleagues who were dedicated to effecting change through collaborative effort. He focused his energy on membership and on student involvement because he had an enthusiasm to build a stronger, better organization by creating a feeling of family and of collegiality. Leroy was a dedicated member of GCFI for 40 years. For 20 of those years, he was on the board of directors, and he was the executive secretary of GCFI with all the myriad of duties that it entailed for 18 years, because he felt that GCFI was truly his family. And he also felt that coming back to the meetings every year was like coming home for him. He wouldn't miss a meeting. His wish for new members and for students was to also have them embrace that feeling of collegiality, friendship, and family, so that every year when they would come back, they would have that feeling that they were coming home to GCFI. Now behind me, as you can see, as Bob said, this is the James B. Higman Bell. There's quite a history and a tradition that comes with the bell. James B. Higman was actually an executive secretary way back when GCFI was part of or supported by the University of Miami and Rasmus. So without further ado, on behalf of Leroy, myself, and his family, I say welcome home to GCFI. May Leroy's legacy live on through his GCFI family. And at this time, it is both a privilege and a pleasure for me to announce that the 74th GCFI is officially open.